I can't believe that this is really life. This is really my life, and I'm so grateful that I get to live a life, an international life. I get to be a full-time mom. I get to work from anywhere in the world, and I'm grateful for that. And if you know my story and you've been following me from the beginning, it's been a rocky road. And if you don't know, I'm going to talk about it in this video today. So welcome to the channel if you're new. Welcome back to all of my family as we're growing. And as we're growing, I wanted to introduce myself. A lot of people are coming into the community wondering, why I'm sharing what I'm sharing, why I'm doing what I'm doing. And while you may never understand that, hopefully I can share a little bit about me that helps people that have an interest of living this global lifestyle can understand that I'm not extraordinary. I'm just somebody who decided to move and take action despite everything else that could have possibly stopped me. So my name is Ashley on my channel, Ashley in Africa. I share my experience of moving, living, and doing business here on the continent of Africa. I'm also the founder and creator of the Afrika Investors Academy, a community of like-minded entrepreneurs and investors who are building businesses or aspiring to build their business and do business and invest here on the continent of Africa. It has been a beautiful ride, and we've been busy. So we're making plans to be in Zanzibar this August. If you are not currently registered, please register because we're selling out fast. I don't think we have many slots left. And then for those that can't make it to Zanzibar and want to join the community, I think it's great for people specifically that are doing business or that are entrepreneurial and know and see and understand the promise of what Africa has to offer. So that's what I do. But who I am, essentially is a divine feminine. I'm a mother. I'm a woman living on the continent of Africa. I'm a person that is being, that is in tune with my dreams, my desires, that is living those out every day, and that gets to do that, with an immense amount of gratitude and awareness. And so how did I do that, right? How did I retire from corporate America at 36 and get to live this life? I'm going to share that in this video. So if this content resonates with you, please be sure before we jump in to subscribe to the channel, like this, and share it with someone else who would find value in it as well. So I had a great life in the US. I was a top earner in the top 10% income earners, six-figure income. I drove a $60,000 car, lived in a $500,000 home. I went to all the exclusive events, wore designer bags, jewelry, all the things, right? But it still wasn't fulfilling. Privately, I was dealing in an abusive relationship with myself, my partner, my mother, and I was a functioning, anxious, depressed woman in America. And it was a lot. I was at one point caring for my toddler and my then, 8-year-old, but I was crying every day for months at end. And so after being laid off for the fifth time in 3 years, yes, fifth time in 3 years, I immediately was forced into a time of rest. And when I did that, I essentially did intensive therapy. Like, I needed to know why I wasn't feeling great and why nothing I was doing was helpful. I was self-medicating, I was buying all the things, I was doing self-care, but I wasn't feeling better. And, I went into therapy, and this is something I'm really, really passionate about because so many women feel the same way that I felt are feeling the way that I felt. And I know it because I talk to women every day. I talk to moms, wives, entrepreneurs, high performing women that have an interest in making this move, and we're still dealing with it today. And then so many of my friends, you know, that I love so dearly are still dealing with this. And it's not an easy thing to deal with, right? It's really, really not, but there is a way out, right? There is another side to what this looks like and what this could look like for us. And, you know, that was kind of my rock bottom, right? I was sitting in sessions with people who were struggling with alcoholism, with suicide, you know, it was a lot. And I was like, wow, there are a lot of people going through a lot of things. But what stood out to me the most was that there were these really high level performing Black women that were also in this room with me, that were VPs, that were, you know, senior managers, and they were overworked, underpaid, undervalued, and stressed TF out. And I just knew, you know, there has to be a better way. And in this process of therapy and healing, I learned that, wow, so many of my relationships were not healthy, starting with my, you know, my romantic relationship. And the only thing that I could do was change, right? I couldn't make that other person change. I was the one who had to make a change. And in my change, I noticed how unhealthy that relationship was, and that there was nothing that I could do to make that person change. My change put me in a position to realize that I needed to make a change. And that change was mental, that change was literally physical, which ultimately resulted in me, you know, separating from that relationship. And so, saying all of that, as I started to make these physical changes and emotional changes, I started to realize that my environment was actually a huge part of what was happening in my life, right? Living in a society with friends that tell you, hey, you only have, you know, one mom, or, you know, at least he's doing this and he's doing this, he could be doing this. And also, you know, to many of my friends and family's point, they didn't know everything. But I still knew that there was more, right? There was more for me. There was more that I was deserving of, and ultimately my needs being met was important, my wants. And the only way that I could really show that to be true was to give them to myself. And that's what I started doing. So top of 2020, as everyone knows, the world shut down. And after I'd already kicked into really high gear, this healing journey, I started to see things differently. I started to realize that, wow, like, there really are no guarantees in this life. There really are no certainties. No matter how hard we work, how much we give, how much we kind of follow suit and do the status quo, there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee. And so what were the things that I truly desired that I wasn't experiencing in that moment? And I started to journal. I started to you know, surrender. I started meditating. I was deep in prayer. I was fasting without even knowing I was fasting. I was doing these things to gain clarity around what was next for me. I'd already made some really impactful moves, and, you know, deciding to not go back to work, especially the world was shut down. So I was like, I'm not going to go back into full-time work. You know, I had remove myself from one relationship by default. I had, you know, we were all kind of insulated into our core families. And for me, that was my two daughters. And I had so much time to strategize and to plan in that moment. And I'd always wanted to live abroad. I'd always, you know, played around with entrepreneurship, sold businesses, you know, consulted, and then got hired by clients. And, you know, the best part was I had put things in place that allowed me to take a break, right? So I, you know, years before I'd entered into the relationship that I was in, had some really challenging issues with money, relationship issues with money, things that I was taught about money. And so I invested a lot of time and money into teaching myself about investment, about tax planning, estate planning, insurance, And all these things that we're essentially not taught in schools aren't often taught in our family. And then that's where I learned that, yeah, I need to have some things in place. And so around the age of 30, I invested in insurance policies that allowed me to take time off after being diagnosed as with intense anxiety and depression. And once I had that cushion, I knew I was good. I knew I was good. And so I somewhat went out on a sabbatical. And that is how I ended up in Tanzania for a year and then again another year to restore and reset. And I then removed myself from another environment that was riddled with anxiety, riddled with consumerism, riddled with stress, riddled with this constant need to perform, consume, compete. And that it was then where my creativity was restored, my love of self was restored, my self-respect, my self-esteem, my understanding for what my purpose in life was to be of service. I had surrendered myself into full-time motherhood, and while it wasn't very easy at first because it wasn't something that I was taught, it wasn't something that I'd ever really seen, it was something that really brought me back to the center of myself to realize this is what life is about. It is about loving, giving love, being able to receive love, but also being of service to someone who can't do anything for you. And that shifted everything for me, realizing that I wanted to be this for my children. I wanted to shift that generational dynamic that had been passed on for so many generations of just women who were working and sabotaging and sacrificing their personal family relationships with their children for stability. And yeah, I decided that this was it for me. This is what I wanted. I wasn't going to go back into an environment that wouldn't allow me to do that. And so I figured out, what do I need to do to keep this, to sustain this? Well, number one, it included me living in a society that valued motherhood, that valued a quality of life, that valued relationships, that valued peace and ease. And that for sure wasn't in my home country of America. The second thing was, how can I work at a pace that can sustain a lifestyle for myself and my children, but also allows me to be a full-time mom? And so I invested in courses. I invested in working with people who could teach me skills that I didn't necessarily know. And how could I position myself to earn income? And what skill did I have that I could teach people that I was already an expert at, that I could then earn income? And several of those things are the things that I teach now in the Afrika Investors Academy. Entrepreneurship, the importance of mindset, what it means to travel and move abroad with a family, what it means to set up a business, a bank account in a foreign country as an American, what it means to travel luxuriously as an American or travel on a budget. These are the things that I'm able to teach in the academy that have helped me to earn income on my own terms and monetize and scale a skill that people want, right? And then, as an entrepreneur, this is up and down. This lifestyle is up and down. And so I make sure that I sustain my mental health and my mental wellness. That is through many things. That is through building community, sharing space and community with like minds, seeking those people out, even if they're not in my general vicinity. But investing in those relationships that bring me peace, that bring me joy, that often challenge me to think and do differently. That is a huge part of what has been able to sustain me now going and turning 39 this year, that allow me to know that what I'm doing is great. It's also been sharing my story, opening up and providing value to people, being of service, right? There are almost 30,000 of you in this community that have subscribed to this community, and over 100,000 that have watched this content, over 1 million people that have watched this content over the last year. And I am sharing from a place of service. How can I share an experience that either informs you, inspires you, or excites you to take action and to do something different, or to just be grateful for the fact that you've also taken action, and you've done something different in your family dynamic, and that there is more if you choose. But there's also beauty in the gratitude. And I think the last thing is just that, finding ways to be grateful. And with that is also taking action, being mindful of what's going on, maintaining an abundance mindset around finances, maintaining abundance mindset around relationships, maintaining an abundant mindset and gratitude around myself and the work that I've done on myself, and the self-love that I share with you and myself and the people that I come into contact with, my girls. It's a reminder that I can keep going and I can keep doing this because what I'm doing is valuable, what I'm doing is honorable, and more than anything else, it just feels good to me. So that's how I do it. I teach more on, kind of the resources and the tools that you need. This is really the framework, right? This is me just sharing what I've done and how I've been able to maintain it. But really, there are certain things that you have to be able to put in place to have a lifestyle of choice. And if you have an interest in learning more about what that could look like for you, I absolutely recommend joining our Afrika Investors Academy. It's the best way to get access to me, my insight, my community of experts, advisors, attorneys that I've also made sure to have in place to support me in the lifestyle that I want to live. And we'd love to have you. If you have an interest, please look at the link below. We're offering great pricing before we scale up going into the summit, because the amount of interest has really grown so much that from a capacity standpoint and being able to bring in more experts and more support team, we're having to increase our prices. But for now, we're keeping them at what they will be for the next 30 days. And if you have an interest in joining, we'd love to have you. So until the next video, I'll see you soon.